Can you address the rumors that there were fixed fights in Pride?
I've spoke about this before, and I would be an idiot if I said there wasn't fixed fights in Pride. I would be a fool to think that there was that much mafia presence around and there wasn't some kind of concessions that fighters had to make. I don't think that any fighter in their right mind would, voluntarily go and seek out, hey, I want to throw the fight, or would you throw the fight for me? I think any of that went on was influenced by, some kind of angle the mob was, that had, certain, betting lines that they needed changed or whatever. I mean, there was so much nefarious things that would go on there culturally that I didn't understand. So I would say I'd be an idiot, like I said. But in order for me to say anybody had one fight fixed or not fixed and didn't fixed and all this, I don't know.
I was doing a lot of stuff now with Pride, and Yukino Honda, she was a booker at the time. She calls me up. She says, Mark, you represent Mark Coleman, right? And I said, yeah. She goes, we'd like to have Mark come to Pride. I said, great. As you know, we've been bugging you about this. Oh, yes, but he needs to come do a pro wrestling match. I said, Pride's going in the pro wrestling business? And she goes, oh, no. So you know where this is going, obviously. We need him to put over Takada. Will he do that? I'm like, I don't know. It's a good question. So we start to talk. I bring it to Mark. Mark was in a big, he had lost his UFC deal. He was still at the time considered probably the most dominant heavyweight ever, but he was hurting for money. Those guys didn't get paid back in those days. And when they did, they spent what they made, So Mark needed money. I had him put up in an apartment in San Clemente where my wife and I were living, actually in the same complex. Mark Coleman, Mark Kerr, and Tom Howard all together. That was fun, let me tell you. That was the beginning of the production on the Smashing Machine, when everybody really started to descend into a personal hell together. Oh, dude, it was a time. Wow. So Mark said, yeah, maybe, if the deal's right. So I go back and we started talking about the money. We didn't really get anywhere. And she says, well, we'd like to meet him, because they wanted to ask him face to face, will you do this? They said, Rick, we believe you. You've been very truthful with us, but we want to be able to look him in the eye. I said, I understand. So we made a meeting. They couldn't make that meeting. Then they called me the next day. I was on my way out to a big family dinner, and I couldn't make the meeting they wanted to schedule. And they said, well, is it okay if we meet with Mark if you're not there? And I said, yes, that's fine. Just don't talk money. Let me handle that part of it. Of course. Yukino said, yeah. Mark said, yeah. So Mark calls me a few hours later. He goes, you won't believe this, Bass. He would call me Bass. Bass, you won't believe this. They offered me $300,000. And I'm like, no, they didn't. There's no way. Because they didn't have that kind of money back then. That would have been an unheard of payoff, even putting over Takada. Well, I don't know if you've been to Japan much or have much experience doing business with them, but they put their commas in different places than we do. So I went back to Mark and I said, Mark, let me talk to them, but there's no way. I call him back. He goes, I already figured it out. He goes, it's 30,000, right? I go, yeah. They put the comma under 30. They put a comma in 300 when they meant 30. So his balloon kind of deflated. I go, Mark, let me see what I can do. So I call Yukino and I say, well, he thought you offered $300,000, and she laughed. And I said, yeah. She goes, no, the offer is 30. I go, Yukino, I know that, but he got so blown up over this. He already wasn't like that hot about doing it. So we were able to change the deal from 30,000 to 60,000.
Did you realize that Brock had the potential right there?
Oh, he had the potential, but he didn't have, he didn't have a chance if he's going to have Kerr in his corner, or in his camp.
Right.
And I think maybe he might have eventually figured that one out. Eventually he got rid of Kerr.
Yeah, that's true.
But he wasted everybody's time by having that moron come down here with him.
Okay. What about Mark Coleman? What are your thoughts on him?
I like Coleman. Coleman's a good guy, you know. He can be pissed at me because he's buddies with Kerr. He can be pissed at me for saying what I did, but that's God's honest truth. You know, I'm not here to fucking lie and jack anybody off, you know. Kerr's a goof. Coleman's real. Coleman's a real fighter.
Yeah. What did you think about the incident he had in Pride where a lot of people thought he threw that one fight? I guess there was, I don't know what the reasoning behind it was, but he apparently let somebody beat him.
What fight was that?
One of the Japanese guys, all of their names are hard for me to pronounce, but Rick Bassman said he was paid about 60 grand to do that. Just give up, I guess.
Well,
It was one of the it was a guy that went on to be a wrestler, actually.
they Coleman made two mistakes, you know. One's doing it, the other was letting somebody know about it who fucking talked about it,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I guess Rick was his manager. You know Rick, obviously, too.
Well,
so,
he still shouldn't talk to anybody about it.
that you were offered the fixed fight in Pride. Do you think that happened to other fighters?
Absolutely, it happened. The company fixed them. See, they wanted, it was something new in Japan, and they needed to get people on their side. So they had pro wrestlers come in and fight each other, and they had fighters from America come over there and fight each other, other people over there, and that's what they did.
Did you ever do any Ultimate Fighting in Japan? I seem to recall you may have.
Yeah, I did a work fight.
Because was it presented as a shoot and it was work? Because that was often the case.
It was a work. It was a sumo guy. Yeah, it was fun.
We talked to Gary Goodridge, and I've heard some interviews with Phil Baroni that have fought in Pride, and they were saying there was sometimes pressure on North Americans to get paid more if they would lose to a Japanese fighter. Did you ever notice anything like that in those days?
I think, early on in Pride and so forth, as it was developing, I think, there may have been some instances where guys were kind of pressured, or I've heard grumblings of guys being made offers and so forth. But that was always just a select few.
What happened with that Takada match? I never actually saw it, but everyone wants to know. It seemed a little weird.
What was weird about it?
I guess the finish.
It was a pretty weird finish, wasn't it?